10,000 maniacs, counted every single one of them. It's because of the night, right here on Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is having themselves a fantabulous, enormously wonderful day. I don't know, I'm making stuff up. Who cares, right? Embarrassment from LOA. How many of us, law of attraction, whatever, right? How many of us have had that moment where we've been like swearing to somebody? We're swearing like, this is going to happen. I've been doing it. I've been working on it. Like, I'm doing all my manifestations and my meditations, and I'm like in touch with my chi and whatever, right? And then all of a sudden it really comes to it, and that first date's coming that you've already set up, and you've told everyone it's going to happen, and then all of a sudden they cancel last minute, and you're like, wah, 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 right? Just total bummer. That sucks. Now, first and foremost, to cover the most important reminder that this show is going to offer, I'm sure, that is why we suggest you don't talk about it. When you talk about what you're trying to manifest, before you've manifested it, you create an undue amount of pressure on yourself to make that happen. Now, all of a sudden, you've got witnesses. And one thing that's interesting about witnesses is when you have witnesses, their belief systems tend to come into play. They don't necessarily override your belief system, but they will frequently ask questions that can very well put a damper on your whole mental process. They can activate fears inside of you that maybe you hadn't even considered yet. Oh, isn't that always lovely when we think of something horrible that we hadn't thought of yet? That's always helpful. So again, we recommend you don't talk about it because it does put that level of pressure. Now, that being said, all of us, for the most part, probably have told somebody about it. Even if it's somebody that's a law of attraction practitioner. Granted, they're usually going to work out okay for you in the big picture, but even still, people can get jealous. I've heard a lot of people that are practicing law of attraction, even in our audience, that might see somebody else in a relationship. Their friend suddenly ends up in a relationship. Their friend suddenly is driving a new car. Their friend is suddenly something better and more wonderful. And they get a little jealous. That's normal. It's not okay, mind you, but it's normal. It's very normal for people to feel that way. Problem is what you're not understanding is that's a representation of what you're creating. It's being created because of you, and when you poo-poo on it, it kind of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to manifest. And of course, you love your friends dearly, but here you are in a situation where you're slightly jealous. So even people that are strong supporters can sometimes become questionable supporters when it gets too close to their sensitive spots. All of us have them, and it's up to you what you choose to do with it. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to offer some guidance as to why we generally tell people, it's a black and white rule. This is one I generally recommend. Don't talk to other people about it, and it'll probably save you all sorts of pain. Now, that being said, the need to be right, which is really where a lot of this comes from, right? When embarrassment from law of attractions, when we're wrong, when we've said something and it turns out to not necessarily be correct or what we were intending or whatever, right? A lot of these things come down to ego. Ego is great when it comes to surviving in the internal world, making decisions. Do I need to make a left? Do I need to make a right? That whole very self-aware aspect of ourselves is a very groovy part. And the part of us that understands that we're separate from other things, because if we think we're joined with that automobile that's coming at me at 50 miles an hour, well, you're going to be if you continue to stand there. You will be joined at its windshield, right? Not the kind of relationship that we're hoping to have. So there is a little bit where the ego definitely comes into play. But when it comes to manifesting, when it comes to some of the spiritual stuff in life, when it comes to religion, when it comes to a lot of these other aspects, ego is not a very helpful friend of ours. And it oftentimes will tend to mucky the waters a little bit. So how do we keep our ego out of it? That's tricks unto itself, but for the most part, one of the easiest ways to do that is obviously to stop talking about it. What really is the better way for all of us that are so excited? I think a lot of us want to talk about it, and you know, put in comments below if it's something other than this, but for the most part, a lot of people are excited about it, right? This is something new. This is something cool. Oh my God, did you see what I just made? This person just walked up and handed me $1. I was imagining that 3 days ago, and this guy, he's a bum, and he gave me money. Like, oh my God, right? Like, something crazy happens, and you're just amazed by the whole experience, and now you want to yell from the rooftops. Well, that's great when it's something that's happened already. And that's the best time to yell from the rooftops. One, you've got your experience. I'm not saying you're out of the woods by any means, but one, you've got your experience. And two, it's already happened, so you've already manifested it, so there's no way to take that away from you, right? You can't negative your way. You can't pump your brakes. You can't handbrake yourself out of what you've already created, which is really not a difference between really manifesting, right? Because theoretically, we already have it, but that's one of the differences. But when it's in the past, it's pretty hard, even for most realists, to disagree with the fact that it happened, right? So it helps when you remove the talking about things beforehand and kind of more focus on showing them after. Once you've accomplished it, now talk about it, now show, now share. Now, when I said you weren't out of the woods yet, part of that is relating to the fact that if people truly strongly disbelieve in this whole concept, I promise you, no matter what you've accomplished and proven to yourself, you will never, ever, ever be able to prove it to another person, ever. Unless you're like doing something maybe where you're, in most cases, it could still be perception. It's still an issue of the way they see it versus how you're seeing it at the same moment. You could be at the same movie, watching the same exact screen, and get a totally different experience from the movie. So again, all of us are kind of governed and guided and filtered by our existing filters and all the things within us, the things that make up who we are, our beliefs and what I think is possible, and all these things come into play whenever we're experiencing reality. And, for some person that believes in miracles, the idea of magic's fun. Ooh, let's entertain. What's magic? But for somebody who's very, like, if I can hold it, it's real. The idea of magic's insane to them. It's like, well, that's all just illusions and trickery with the hands, and look over here while I'm doing this over here, right? Like, it's very different. So, and maybe both of them are accurate. Ooh, it's very possible. Again, what we focus on is what we tend to see. But I get over being off topic frequently here. Sorry. So one thing you can do that helps. Now, this is kind of me trying to speak to if we've already made the mistake, if you will. If we've already talked about it, if we've already missed the date, if we've already got our little group of friends that now ask me every day, so what's going on? What's going on with so-and-so? There's a few different approaches that you can take. This has certainly happened to me before, no question about it. I've certainly accomplished a lot of things, but for the most part, I don't talk about them at all, even after I've accomplished them, because I still find the same thing. You still find yourself arguing, well, not arguing, but having to defend what you've been through with people because they don't want to believe it. And it's like, why do I do this? Screw it. I have more fun just creating the things in my life and being this individual. Why do I feel like I need everyone else to say, wow, that's really cool, right? Because that's really, again, back to ego. So if you can shift ego out of the equation, manifesting is way more fun than worrying about what other people think. But that being said, many of us are in that place where we do worry about what other people think. Right, wrong, or indifferent, doesn't matter. One of the things that really helps for me, some of the things I've done, is if I can, when they bring it up, I can kind of defer it. So, how's it going with your SP? No, things are going pretty good. There's this game on the other day. You guys check it out. It was pretty cool. It was really a good score. Or, that thing that happened politically the other day. Oh my God, I can't believe that. I can't believe that's what he said when he was up there. Oh, wow. Like, that's just insane. Or deflect it. Defer it off to something else. Just bring up another topic. If you want to have fun with it, sometimes you can even maybe, hey, so what would you kind of do in this situation? Maybe get them to talk about themselves for a while. Not that I necessarily recommend that as a way to help you with your manifestation, but it helps kind of get it off of you, because oftentimes people generally enjoy talking about themselves. Just something I've kind of found in life, and it's a great icebreaker is you let people talk about themselves. You're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, my name's such and such, and your name's such. So what do you do for a living? Boom, they're off talking, and they're off to the races. God, that Dan guy, he's just so nice. I know, I let you talk about yourself the entire time. It was fantastic, and I learned a lot. So again, into that kind of stuff. But defer if you need to. Push it off. Talk about something else. It's okay. And what you can do, like I said, is you can start moving the topic into another direction. And if that successfully doesn't work, sometimes, in all honesty, if it's true or not true, and I'm not saying lie, but I'm not saying don't, what I'm saying is sometimes I have found it's easier to tell people, I've given up, letting go, I don't care anymore, it's not happening, yeah, you were right, I'm crazy. Like, there's been a few places in my life where things have happened that I don't have any real solid understanding as to what was going on in my world and why I experienced what I experienced. And that's pretty hard to, not certain people, like my parents just brought one up from when I was younger. Again, and it's like, my experience was my experience, and it was just one of those where you can't talk about it with people because it sounds crazy no matter what. And they still bring it up, like the crazy thing, and it's just like, So it's just easier to say, yeah, no, I don't do it anymore. It's done. And that's what I said to them when they brought it up. I'm like, I know, it's totally crazy then. And that's it. I just let it go because it's easier. It's easier. It's easier to just let them have their be right moment and don't worry about it and just learn not to talk about it with people that can't understand what you're talking about. They always say that the phrase is what? For those who can see, or for those who have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, knock and the door shall be opened for you. And that's really a super true statement. If they can't hear it, can't see it, aren't ready for it, and you're talking about it, you will never break through that. It comes from within them. That's where they're ever going to break through that. They'll have a dream. Something weird will happen. They'll finally be like, oh my God, what you did the other day, it was really weird. Like, how'd you do that? Like, they'll ask. It'll come from them. Whenever anything's tried to be crammed down someone else's throat, it never goes well. Never, never, never. So, something to keep in mind. If you got to deflect, defer, even if you have to tell people you've given up, universe knows you're still interested. Don't worry. But it definitely will get some of that weight off you. And frankly, you'll find a lot more success in your manifesting game when you finally take all that pressure off and just let it be. It's a show I'm going to be doing up soon. Actually, it's in my notes to do as a future shows. The concept of pressure and how pressure truly interacts with us and definitely messes with our ability to manifest properly. And this whole topic's kind of on the same side. When you talk about stuff, you create undue pressure, unneeded pressure. There's no benefit to this pressure. It's only your ego that gets that little, oh, you see how cute you look with that nail polish? That's your ego. Let it go. Doesn't belong in where we're at when it comes to this kind of stuff. Hopefully makes a difference. Going out with a great song by Toto. It's called Rosanna. It's right here on Dan Radio Style.
She's gone.